Evan had landed on many strange worlds in his life, but this moon felt different the moment his boots touched the soft blue soil. The air carried a gentle hum, as if the land itself whispered. Trees shaped like tall crystal towers glowed with pale light, changing colors every time the wind passed through them. It should have been a peaceful place. But something felt wrong. The silence was too deep, almost fearful. He had only planned to stop for repairs. His small ship, old but loyal, needed its cooling coils fixed. And this moon was the closest safe landing point. But as he worked, tightening bolts and checking wiring, he picked up a strange signal on his scanner. It wasn't random noise. It repeated in an exact pattern. The same pulse, every few seconds. A distress signal. Someone was calling for help. Evan had seen enough trouble in the galaxy to know that ignoring such signals only left guilt behind. He wiped his hands on his toolkit cloth, packed his emergency gear, and followed the direction of the signal into the glowing forest. Each step made the ground light up faintly under his boots. The deeper he went, the clearer the signal became, though he still heard no voices, no movement, just the steady pulse. After half an hour of walking, he smelled smoke, burning metal, electrical fire, and the sharp scent of cooling plasma. He quickened his pace, moving past a row of leaning crystals until the forest opened up into a wide clearing. The source of the distress signal lay before him in broken pieces. A royal transport ship, sleek silver with long wings shaped like feathers, had crashed violently. Half of it was buried under fallen crystal trees. The front of the craft had split open, and energy sparks jumped wildly from broken wires. Evan's heart tightened. Whoever had been inside must have gone through something terrible. He approached carefully, scanning for heat signatures. The ship's systems were nearly dead. He saw no movement outside. No guards. No crew. But as he stepped closer, his scanner beeped again. One life sign. Faint but real, trapped inside the wreck. He rushed forward, climbing into the broken hull through a torn section. Inside the ship was chaos. Seats ripped loose, panels hanging, emergency lights flickering. A soft groan reached his ears. He turned sharply and saw her. A young alien woman lay half buried under a heavy support beam. Her skin was a gentle shade of lavender, faintly glowing in the dim light. Her hair, long and bright like silver threads, was spread around her in tangled waves. She wore royal markings on her clothing, delicate gold lines, and a crest near her shoulder. Even without knowing her species, Evan understood instantly who she was. Royalty. A princess. She tried to move when she heard him, but pain made her gasp. Evan crouched beside her and spoke softly, not wanting to frighten her. "Hey, it's okay. I'm here to help." Her eyes opened slowly, large, luminous, filled with both fear and exhaustion. She stared at him for a moment, shocked. Her voice trembled as she whispered something in her language, but then she tried again in basic galactic standard. "A human? Here?" Her voice was weak and confused, as if this was the last thing she expected to see. Evan offered a steady smile. "Yeah, lucky timing. Hold still, I'm going to lift this off you." Her breath shook. "You will try?" "I won't try," he said gently. "I'll do it." She watched him with wide, uncertain eyes as he pulled open his tool bag. The beam pinning her was heavy, far too heavy for bare hands, so he used a portable jack, sliding it under the metal and slowly cranking it upward. The device groaned under the weight. But little by little, the beam lifted enough for her to pull her leg free. She cried out softly, as movement sent pain through her body. As soon as she was clear, Evan shoved the beam aside and checked her injuries. She had bruises, a deep cut on her leg, and signs of shock. He didn't touch her without warning her first, knowing how easily aliens could misunderstand humans. "I'm going to help you sit up," he said gently. She nodded weakly. He slipped an arm behind her shoulders and carefully lifted her. She leaned against him, breathing hard. For a moment, her eyes closed, and he thought she might faint, but she managed to stay awake, blinking up at him again. "Why? Would you help me?" she asked in a small voice. "You do not know me." "You needed help," Evan replied simply. That's enough. The way she stared at him then. It was as if no one had ever said something like that to her before. He helped her out of the ship piece by piece, careful with every step. The forest outside glowed brighter at nightfall, and tiny firefly-like creatures floated through the air. Evan carried her until they were far enough from the crash for safety. He set her down near a gentle slope under a crystal tree whose branches gave off soft warmth. She was trembling slightly. Not from fear now, mostly from pain and exhaustion. Evan took off his outer jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. She tried to protest with a whisper. No, you need. I'm fine, he said with a small smile. You need it more. She held the jacket close, surprised again by his kindness. Humans were not common in her part of the galaxy. Her people often considered them unpredictable, rough, or too emotional. But this human wasn't any of those things. He was calm, gentle, and kept checking if she was comfortable. He scanned her injured leg and cleaned the wound carefully. She gasped once, but he apologized softly and slowed down. No roughness, no impatience, only steady hands and careful motions. Her fear faded, replaced by something warm she didn't understand. The forest grew colder as hours passed. Evan gathered crystals and dry plant fibers he knew would burn softly without smoke. Soon a small fire glowed between them, giving just enough warmth. He placed a hand warmer near her leg, wrapped her with an emergency blanket, and sat beside her so she wouldn't feel alone. She stared into the fire for a long time before speaking again. Her voice was still soft, but steadier now. My name is Lysera, she said slowly. I am Princess of the Nelian Star Realm. Evan nodded respectfully but without surprise. Figured you were important. Royal symbols gave it away. She blinked. You are not afraid of angering my people? Why would I? He asked, confused. All my guards are missing, she whispered, looking at the ground. If they return and see a human holding their princess, Evan shook his head. They'll see someone who saved you. That's all. She looked at him with such emotion that she had to blink it away. She wasn't used to this, a stranger risking himself without expecting anything in return. She leaned back against the tree, tired. The attackers. They were after me, she murmured. We tried to escape, but the pilot lost control. I thought I would die alone here. You're not alone now, Evan said gently. The simple words made her chest tighten. She didn't know him, yet his voice comforted her more than any guard ever had. She watched him adjust the fire again, watched the way he kept glancing at her to check if she was warm enough. The night wind made his hair move softly, and the warm firelight showed the quiet strength in his face. She felt safe for the first time since the crash. A long silence settled between them, not empty, but peaceful. She studied him secretly, wondering why this human felt so different from the stories she had heard. Humans were supposed to be unpredictable, selfish, and impatient. Evan was none of that. Every action he took was thoughtful. Every word he spoke carried calm. He treated her not like a princess, just like a person who mattered. She finally whispered, "Thank you for saving me." Evan shook his head gently. "You don't owe me anything." Those words confused her even more. Everyone in her world expected something: loyalty, rewards, respect, tribute. But he didn't want anything. Not even her thanks. She turned slightly and looked at him with more attention. "If you were the one trapped in that ship," she asked quietly, "do you think someone would have come for you?" Evan looked into the fire for a moment before answering. "Maybe, maybe not. But it doesn't matter to me. What matters is that you needed help." Lysera's chest tightened again. No court advisor, no royal guard, no noble diplomat had ever said something so simple and sincere to her. His words felt warm, like a shield she didn't know she needed. She shifted slightly, wincing as her leg throbbed. Evan noticed instantly and moved closer, adjusting the blanket around her. She didn't pull away. In fact, she leaned just a little into the warmth of his jacket. The gesture was small, but for her, it was something new: trust. The wind picked up, carrying the soft hum of the forest. Evan checked the scanner once more for dangers, then set it aside. Lysera watched him do all this with gentle concern. "You risked so much coming here," she whispered. "Why did you not simply leave when you saw the crash?" Evan shrugged lightly. "I've been in enough bad situations to know how it feels when no one comes to help. I didn't want you to go through that." I'm knowing." Lysera's fingers tightened on the edge of his jacket. She lowered her eyes, speaking in a voice so quiet he almost didn't hear. "You are not like the men in my world." Evan didn't know what to say to that, so he just smiled softly. The fire warmed their small shelter, and the crystal trees shimmered like thousands of floating lights. The moonlit night wrapped them in gentle peace, but Lysera still felt a strange heaviness in her heart, fear that he might leave once morning came. For now, though, he stayed by her side, keeping watch as she slowly drifted into sleep, holding on to the warmth of the one person she never expected to save her. And without realizing it, as she slept under his jacket, she had already begun to hope he wouldn't disappear when daylight arrived. Morning arrived slowly on the glowing moon. Pale light filtered through the crystal trees, making the forest shimmer like a dream. Evan woke up first, stiff from sleeping against the tree trunk, but alert the moment he remembered he wasn't alone. Lysera still slept beside the fire, wrapped in his jacket, breathing softly. Her face looked peaceful for the first time. No fear, no tension, just calm rest. He checked her wound and felt relieved seeing the bleeding had stopped. She needed proper medical care, but for now she was stable. He looked around the quiet forest, scanning for danger. The place seemed calm, but something bothered him. The attackers who caused the crash, they could still be nearby. He didn't want Lysera to panic, so he kept the thought to himself. As the fire dimmed, Lysera slowly opened her eyes. For a moment she didn't remember where she was, but then she saw Evan sitting close by, watching over her with steady concern. Her expression softened in a way she didn't even realize. "You stayed awake?" she asked softly. "Most of the night," Evan replied. "Wanted to make sure nothing got close." Her eyes widened, touched by the simple dedication. "You protected me? Even while I slept?" He shrugged like it wasn't a big thing. That's what anyone decent would do. She didn't agree with that. Not everyone she knew would have done the same. In fact, very few would have. Lysera slowly tried to sit up. Pain shot through her leg, but Evan immediately supported her, helping her lean against the smooth bark of the crystal tree. His hands were gentle, careful not to cause more pain. "You should eat something," he said, pulling out a small container of ration fruit. He offered her a piece, and she accepted it with both hands, trying not to show how hungry she truly was. She had lost strength during the crash, and his fire and blanket only kept her from getting worse. After a few minutes of quiet, Lysera looked at him with a serious expression. "Evan, there is something I must tell you." She paused, gathering courage. "The attackers who shot down my ship, they will return. They will search for survivors. They will search for me." Evan had suspected as much, but hearing her say it made him more alert. "Why are they after you?" he asked calmly. Lysera lowered her eyes. "Because I am the heir to the throne. If they capture me, my realm will be forced to surrender. My enemies want power. They believe taking me will give it to them." Evan understood. Politics, power, and betrayal, these things existed everywhere in the galaxy. But Lysera wasn't a politician. She was just a scared young woman trying to survive. "We need to move," he said. "We can't stay in the open." She nodded, trusting him completely. Evan carefully helped her stand. She clung to him for support as they started moving deeper into the forest, searching for a safer place. The sun climbed higher, making the crystal trees glow brighter. The air grew warm, and small floating creatures drifted above them like soft, glowing petals. For a while, things seemed peaceful, but as they reached a ridge overlooking the valley, Evan froze. Down below, a dark ship had landed, the same kind Lysera described. Black armor plating, red insignias, and a scanning beam sweeping across the ground. Lysera gasped softly. "It's them." Evan's jaw tightened. Then we need to make sure they don't catch us. Lysera trembled slightly. Evan, these are dangerous people. Even trained guards fear them. Evan didn't flinch. Then it's good they're not facing your guards. They're facing me. She looked at him in disbelief. There was no fear in his voice. No hesitation. Just determination. She whispered. Why do you not run away? You do not even know me. He turned to her with a calm smile. I know enough. You needed someone. I'm here. Her heart ached at the simplicity of his answer. Evan led her away from the ridge and into a narrow canyon covered with tall crystal spikes. The space was tight, perfect for hiding and limiting how many attackers could come through at once. Lysera leaned against him with every step, her injury slowing them down, but Evan supported her without complaint. He helped her sit behind a cluster of crystal boulders. Stay here. Stay low. Her eyes widened with worry. What will you do? Make sure they don't find you, he said simply. Lysera grabbed his wrist before he could leave. Evan, please, do not risk your life for me. He placed his hand gently over hers. I told you already, I'm not leaving you alone. She held onto his hand a moment longer, as if afraid to let go. Then Evan slipped away into the canyon's shadows. Lysera watched him go, her chest tight with a strange, new fear, not for herself, but for him. Minutes passed slowly. The only sounds were distant hums from the enemy ship. Lysera tried to stay calm, but her mind was filled with worry. She had known him for less than a day. Yet Evan had become the only person she trusted. Suddenly, footsteps echoed lightly through the canyon. Lysera held her breath. She peeked over the crystal stone. One enemy scout had entered the canyon. His armor was dark and sharp, and he carried a scanning device. The light swept slowly across the narrow path, coming closer to where she hid. Her heart pounded. Just as the scanner beam approached her rock, a soft clicking sound came from behind the scout. Evan. He had moved behind the intruder silently, almost invisibly. Lysera watched with wide eyes as Evan stepped forward and tapped the scout's shoulder. The armored attacker turned in surprise, and Evan grabbed him, pulling him off balance and covering his face before he could shout. A brief struggle followed, quiet and efficient. Evan acted with controlled strength, not cruelty. He didn't harm the man more than necessary. He simply neutralized him, removed the power cell of his scanner, and placed him gently on the ground behind a rock. Lysera stared in stunned silence. Evan had done it all without panic, without fear, like someone who had been in danger before and learned to stay calm. Then she realized something deeper. He was not fighting to win. He was fighting to protect her. As more scouts entered the canyon, Evan used clever tricks, echoing stones, distractions, sudden movements. He never attacked unless he had to. He simply guided the intruders away from her hiding place, making them think the signal was elsewhere. He moved like someone who had survived many difficult places in his life. Every action had purpose. Lysera could not look away. She felt warmth rising in her chest, a mix of gratitude and awe. She had grown up surrounded by guards who fought with pride, noise, and anger. Evan fought with quiet bravery, focused only on keeping her safe. After almost an hour of tension, the attackers retreated, believing the survivors' signal had been a false reading. Their ship lifted off, engines roaring, and disappeared into the sky. The moment they were gone, Lysera finally exhaled. Her hands trembled. She had never been so afraid, and never so relieved. Evan returned to her, breathing hard but still steady. His shirt had a tear, and dust covered his arms, but he smiled anyway. You okay? He asked. Lysera's answer came out in a whisper. You risked everything for me. It's fine, he said gently. You're safe now. She shook her head, tears gathering in her eyes, not from fear, but from the overwhelming kindness she had received. No one has ever protected me the way you did, she whispered. Not even my own guards. Evan knelt beside her and checked her injury again. Your leg needs rest. We should find a better place. Lysera didn't move. Instead, she looked directly into his eyes. Deep, emotional, sincere. Why do you care so much about me? He paused and answered quietly. Because you matter. Her heart felt like it stopped for a moment. No guard, no advisor, no noble had ever spoken to her like that. She lowered her head, her voice trembling. Evan, I don't want you to leave me. He gently placed a stabilizing brace on her leg and helped her stand. I'm not going anywhere, he said. Those simple words meant more to her than anything she had ever heard. They moved deeper into the canyon until they found a hidden cave behind a curtain of falling crystal mist, a safe shelter glowing with soft blue light. Evan set up a small camp inside while Lysera watched quietly, her feelings growing with every careful motion he made. When he finally sat beside her, she leaned slightly toward him, not thinking about royal rules or proper behavior. She just wanted to be close to the person who protected her more fiercely than her own people. And without saying anything more, she silently prayed he would stay long after the danger was gone. Hours passed inside the hidden cave behind the waterfall of crystal mist, and the soft blue light made everything appear calm and unreal. Lysera sat close to the warm fire Evan had built, wrapped in his emergency blanket. Her legs still hurt, but the pain felt smaller compared to everything she had gone through. Evan sat beside her, checking his scanner again to make sure no danger was nearby. He wanted her to feel completely safe. Lysera watched him quietly. She didn't speak at first. She simply studied the way he worked, focused, patient, and gentle even when he was tired. She had seen many guards prepare camps or take care of injured nobles, but none of them ever moved with such quiet purpose. Evan didn't treat her like a duty. He treated her like someone who mattered to him personally. After a long moment, she broke the silence in a soft voice. Evan, will they come back again? He lowered the scanner and looked at her with honesty. Maybe. They didn't find what they wanted. But for now, they've left this part of the moon. She nodded slowly, her fingers twisting the edge of the blanket. She wasn't afraid of the attackers anymore. She was afraid of something else, what would happen when Evan decided it was time to leave her side. Evan noticed the worry in her eyes. You don't have to be scared. I won't let anything happen to you. Lysera lowered her eyes, her voice trembling. I believe you. She felt a strange warmth spread across her chest. No one had ever said comforting things to her so simply and so genuinely. She was a princess, and people usually spoke to her with too much respect or fear. Evan spoke like she was just a person beside him, someone whose safety mattered to him more than titles. The sound of falling crystal water echoed peacefully in the cave. Evan placed small glowstones around them to make the cave brighter. Lysera watched his hands moving, and something inside her tightened gently. He looked tired, yet he refused to rest because he was still watching over her. You should sleep too, she whispered. You stayed awake all night for me. Evan shook his head softly. I'll sleep once. I know you're completely safe. Her chest felt heavy with emotion. She wanted to protest, but he had already made up his mind. So instead, she asked him something she had been holding in since morning. Evan, why are you like this? Why do you help without asking anything in return? He took a slow breath, thinking, I guess, I know how it feels to be alone in a dangerous place, and I know how it feels when someone finally decides to help you. I don't want anyone to feel helpless if I can do something about it. Lysera listened carefully, absorbing every word. His answer was simple, yet it carried the weight of experience. She didn't understand everything about humans, but she understood that Evan carried quiet struggles of his own, ones he didn't speak about but shaped him deeply. She quietly asked, Were you alone a lot? On your journeys? Evan looked at the fire. Sometimes. Some planets. You can't always count on people. But that doesn't mean we stop helping others when they need it. Lysera leaned slightly toward him. I wish more people in my world thought like you. He smiled gently, not knowing that his smile warmed her more than the blanket. The cave grew quieter. Outside, the glowing forest hummed softly, and the sound of tiny creatures moving through the crystals gave the night a peaceful rhythm. Evan began to prepare simple food, and Lysera helped by holding the container steady. It took longer than usual because she could use only one leg, but Evan never rushed her. He guided her gently, teaching her how to mix the ingredients without spilling. She felt surprisingly happy doing something simple beside him, It made her forget she was royalty. It made her feel normal, safe, seen. When they finished eating, she rested again. Leaning her back against the smooth wall of the cave, Evan sat beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth, but respectful enough not to crowd her. After a long silence, Lysera suddenly said, "When I return to my realm, they will expect me to act strong and perfect. They will think I survived the crash because of luck, or because my guards protected me." She looked at him deeply. "But the truth is, I survived because of you." Evan shook his head immediately. "You were strong too. Anyone else might have given up after everything." She smiled, softly, tired but sincere. "You don't understand. No one has ever risked so much for me. Not even my own guards. They follow orders. They protect me because of duty. But you protected me because you chose to." Evan didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to such open gratitude. But Lysera wasn't finished. "You did not know my name. You did not know my title. And still, you saved me like I was someone important." He met her eyes. "You are someone important." She looked down quickly, her cheeks warming at the gentle meaning behind his words. She tried to hide it by adjusting the blanket, but Evan noticed the shift in her body language. He smiled faintly but said nothing, not wanting to make her uncomfortable. A soft breeze drifted into the cave, carrying the sweet scent of glowing flowers outside. Lysera breathed deeply, feeling calmer than she had felt in years. She knew the danger wasn't completely gone, but she also knew Evan would face it with her if needed. As hours passed, Lysera grew tired again. Her body needed rest to heal. Evan noticed her eyelids drooping and helped her adjust the blanket around her more securely. "You should sleep," he said in a gentle voice. "Your leg needs the rest." She hesitated for a moment, then spoke in a quiet, almost shy tone. "Will you stay close while I sleep?" Evan nodded. "Of course." She relaxed instantly at his answer. She moved slightly, finding a comfortable position against the stone wall, then closed her eyes. Evan stayed beside her, watching the cave entrance like a silent guardian. But sleep didn't come immediately to Lysera. She kept her eyes closed but whispered softly, "Evan?" "Yes." She hesitated before speaking again. "Thank you for not leaving me." He looked at her peaceful face and said gently, "I told you. You're not alone anymore." Those words made Lysera finally let go of her tension. She breathed out slowly and fell asleep, trusting him completely. Evan watched her sleep for a long time. He wasn't sure why he felt so protective over her. Maybe because she reminded him of all the lonely people he had met on his travels. Maybe because she had looked at him with so much trust, despite knowing him for only a short time. Or maybe because deep inside, he felt a connection with her he couldn't explain. Hours passed, and Evan finally allowed himself to rest, but only lightly. If anything approached the cave, he would wake instantly. But for the moment, the forest around them stayed peaceful. When Lysera woke again, the light outside the cave had changed. Afternoon sun made the crystals sparkle like tiny stars. Evan was already awake, sitting near the entrance, sharpening a tool quietly. She watched him for several seconds, feeling something warm and soft settle in her chest. She didn't understand it fully, but she didn't want it to go away. Evan noticed her waking and walked over. "How's your leg?" She touched it gently. "Still hurts, but not as much." "That's good. You're healing." Lysera took a slow breath. "Evan, may I ask something? A personal question." He nodded. "Sure." She looked at him carefully. "Do you ever feel like you have no place to call home?" "Not." Evan paused. Her question wasn't expected, but he understood it immediately. "Sometimes," he admitted. "I travel a lot. I fix things, help when I can, but I don't really stay anywhere for long." Lysera listened closely, her heart tightening with sympathy. "That must be lonely," he smiled softly. "It can be, but I've learned to live with it." She swallowed, thinking deeply. "When this is over, when we reach my realm." She stopped, gathering courage. If you ever wanted a place to stay, you would not be unwelcome. Evan blinked in surprise. Lysera. She lowered her eyes quickly, embarrassed. I mean it. After everything you did, you deserve safety too. He didn't answer for a long moment. Her words touched him more than she knew. Before he could respond, a sudden noise from above echoed through the cave, something sharp, mechanical, and loud. Lysera stiffened. What is that? Evan grabbed his scanner, his expression turning serious. Someone's approaching. And it's fast. His readings confirmed it. Another ship had entered the moon's atmosphere. But this one wasn't an enemy. The signal matched the Nellian Royal Rescue Fleet. Lysera's heart pounded. My people. They found me. Evan nodded. Looks like it. Emotions rushed through her: relief, fear, confusion, and something else she didn't know how to name. She looked at Evan, her voice trembling slightly. What will happen now? Evan didn't know yet. But he knew one thing. He wasn't leaving her side until he knew she was safe in the arms of her own people. Lysera silently hoped he wouldn't leave even after that. The sound of approaching engines grew louder above the crystal-filled forest, creating a trembling vibration in the cave walls. Lysera felt her heartbeat rise. Not only from relief, but from something she hadn't expected. Fear of being separated from Evan. The Royal Rescue Fleet meant safety. Yes. It meant going home. Yes. But it also meant that Evan, the one who had saved her life and protected her without hesitation, might decide this was the end of his part in her story. Evan glanced at the cave ceiling where dust gently shook loose. They're close, he said quietly. Lysera nodded but didn't move right away. She looked at him with eyes full of worry. When they come, will you stay beside me? At least until they know who you are? I'm not going anywhere, Evan answered gently. Not until I know you're safe. Those words comforted her more than the arrival of an entire fleet. He helped her stand, placing her arm carefully around his shoulders to support her weight. They walked out of the cave together, stepping through the curtain of glowing crystal mist that sparkled like tiny falling stars. Outside, sunlight made the forest shine brighter than ever. Evan guided Lysera to an open patch where the rescue team could easily spot them. Within minutes, a massive silver ship descended from the sky, its engines quiet but powerful. The royal crest of the Nelian star realm glowed brightly on its side. Smaller ships circled the area, scanning for enemies. Lysera held onto Evan tightly, her fingers trembling. The large ship touched down on a flat part of the forest floor, and a group of armored royal guards rushed out. They formed lines, scanning the surroundings with sharp attention. When they saw Lysera leaning against Evan, their expressions transformed: shock, relief, confusion. One guard fell to his knees. Princess Lysera, you are alive. Lysera forced a small smile but didn't let go of Evan. Yes, I am alive because of him. The guards exchanged surprised looks. They expected to find her guarded by her own people, not by a tired human explorer in worn-out clothes. The rescue captain, a tall alien woman with glowing gold eyes, approached carefully. Princess, please allow us to take you to the ship. You require medical care. Lysera nodded, but her grip on Evan's arm tightened. He goes with me. The guards hesitated. It wasn't in their protocol to allow an unknown human onto a royal rescue vessel. But her voice carried authority they couldn't argue with. Two medics approached with a floating stretcher, but Lysera refused it. No, she said softly. Evan will help me walk. Evan gave her a gentle look, half amused, half touched. It's okay, Lysera. They can take care of you now. But Lysera shook her head, her voice trembling. Not yet. Please, stay with me. So he stayed. With Evan supporting her, they walked together toward the ship. Guards stepped aside, confused but respectful, watching the strange pair approach the injured princess leaning on a human with quiet trust. Inside the ship, the halls were bright and clean, filled with smooth walls and soft lights. Medical machines hummed quietly. Lysera had grown up in this environment, but now it felt almost too large, too empty after the warmth of the cave. The medics helped her onto a soft medical bed, scanning her body for deeper injuries. Evan stood nearby, uncomfortable in the formal surroundings but refusing to step back unless Lysera asked him to. She never did. As the medics worked, she kept looking at Evan as if checking to make sure he was still there. He met her gaze every time, giving her a small, reassuring nod. After several minutes, the chief medic spoke. "Princess, your injuries are stable. You will fully recover. However, you must rest for several days." Lysera nodded politely, but her attention remained on Evan. The rescue captain noticed and approached Evan cautiously. "You are the human who saved our princess," Evan simply replied. "She needed help." The captain studied him as if trying to understand the simplicity of his explanation. "Then you have our gratitude. And our respect." Evan nodded quietly, feeling awkward with too many eyes on him. Lysera motioned for the captain to leave them for a moment. When the room cleared, she lifted her hand weakly, and Evan moved closer. "Evan," she whispered. "Thank you. Again." "You don't have to thank me," he said kindly. "I'm glad you're safe now." She looked at him with deep emotion. "I meant what I said earlier. I survived because of you." He didn't know how to respond. He simply placed a gentle hand near hers, hoping she understood he cared. After a moment, Lysera took a slow breath. "After they treat me, after we reach my realm, you will leave. Won't you?" Evan hesitated. "You have your people now. Your palace. Your duties. You don't need someone like me." She shook her head firmly, surprising him. "Do not say that. You matter, Evan. More than you know." He didn't speak, she continued, her voice trembling with honesty she had never shown to anyone before. "I do not want you to disappear from my life. Not after everything we went through. Not after all you did for me. I don't care about rules or protocol. I don't care what my advisors say. I want you to stay." Her voice wasn't commanding like a princess. It was pleading like a person afraid of losing something precious. He sat beside her, his expression soft. "Lysera, I didn't save you expecting to stay in your world. I did it because it was the right thing to do." "I know," she said softly. "That is exactly why I want you near me." Silence filled the room, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of unspoken feelings neither of them knew how to express fully. Before Evan could find words, the ship shuddered gently. They were leaving the moon, heading toward her homeworld. Hours passed as they traveled. Lysera rested while Evan stayed nearby, watching stars stretch across the viewing panels. She woke occasionally, always checking if he was still in the room, and every time, she saw him there quiet, protective, steady. Finally, the ship reached the Nellian capital. Through the viewing window, Evan saw massive floating towers, shimmering bridges, and glowing gardens in the sky. It was beautiful, far beyond anything he had seen in his travels, but Lysera wasn't watching the scenery. She was watching him. When the ship landed, hundreds of officials and guards waited outside. As soon as the ramp lowered, the crowd bowed deeply. Lysera was the future queen, their precious heir, and seeing her alive brought relief to every face. But their expressions changed instantly when they saw Evan walking beside her. Whispers spread quickly. Who was this human? Why was he beside the princess? Why did she hold onto his arm with such quiet familiarity? Lysera didn't care what they thought. When the royal council approached to escort her away, she spoke clearly. "He stays with me." The council members exchanged worried looks. "Princess, he is an outsider, a traveler." "Your world does not," Lysera interrupted, her voice strong. "He is not leaving." She turned to Evan. Her eyes shimmered with emotion that made his breath catch. "You saved my life," she whispered. "You protected me when I was afraid. You stayed with me when I had no one. And now, I do not want a life where you are far away." Evan stared at her, surprised by the depth in her words. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Are you sure, Lysera? Your world is different from mine. Your life is complicated, full of responsibility. I don't belong in a palace." She shook her head and reached for his hand. "You belong where you are valued, where you are trusted, where you are wanted." Her voice softened, full of genuine warmth. "And I want you to stay." His chest tightened, not in fear, but in something warm and overwhelming. No one had ever asked him to stay anywhere before. No one had ever seen worth in a wanderer who traveled alone. He looked into her eyes and saw nothing but sincerity. "So," Evan whispered, "you really want me here? With you?" Lysera nodded softly, her voice almost trembling. "Yes, please." There was no force in her words, only a heartfelt plea. And in that moment, Evan made his choice. He squeezed her hand gently. "Then I'll stay." Relief and joy washed over her face. She closed her eyes briefly, as if releasing all the fear she'd been carrying. When she looked at him again, her smile was soft and full of gratitude. The guards stepped back respectfully. The council bowed. The people watched silently as Evan stood beside their princess, no longer just her rescuer, but someone she had chosen to keep close. As the palace gates opened and Lysera leaned on him for support, Evan realized he had finally found something he had never had before: belonging. And Lysera, walking beside the human who saved her life, knew she had gained something even rarer: a protector who cared for her not because of duty or crown, but because of genuine heart. They walked forward together into the bright light of her world, ready to face whatever came next. Not as princess and stranger, but as two lives forever connected by courage, trust, and a bond neither expected but both deeply wanted.